Hi, this is Tony Ruesing. Welcome to Fuel for Faith and Freedom. This podcast interview is to help you become a better communicator. And we believe that if you listen and listen closely, you'll get some real great information that can really help you develop your self-confidence and make you better at what you do. So I've got a guest today, and I want to read this so I don't miss anything. My guest today is Dittrich. He is an entrepreneurial banker, and while that may sound like an oxymoron, it's true. I have followed his career for quite some time. I am delighted he agreed to this interview. He has been asked on numerous occasions to share his insights. All over the world, he has shared how careers turn corners, go around curves, hit potholes, and while adventuresome and challenging, they still turn out successfully, often way beyond personal expectations. So let's say hello to Dittrich. Gaines, how are you today?
I'm great, Tony. How are you doing?
Well, we're delighted that you've said yes to this interview. And you live, Gaines, in Florida now. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in, at least until I was 13 years old, in a little town in Texas. It was Decatur, Texas, a town of about 2,000 people.
Is that right? And so you spent your childhood there. Did you have a job early on as a kid growing up?
I did. We moved when I was 13 to Fort Worth. As a matter of fact, the high school I went to actually had more people than the town that I initially grew up in. And so it was a cultural change, to say the least. But my dad believed in establishing a work ethic. And so when I was 13 years old, I went to work for the post office. And I delivered special delivery letters for free for the post office, and rode my bike all over the small community, taking special delivery letters, which is something people probably don't even know about today. But back then it was really important because we were in the Korean War, and there were a lot of young boys, men sending letters, special delivery to their parents and their grandparents. And so I was delivering those letters, and they would give me tips. And sometimes it was a dime, sometimes it was a nickel. I remember a couple of times I got 50 cents and I thought I'd hit a home run. So that was my initial job. And I worked from the time I was 13 till last year.
13 till last year. So let's go back to 13 for just a minute here. In that first job, what were some of the things that really drove home to you that it was a good idea to work and have a work ethic?
Well, I think one of the things that that really influenced me was the fact that all of my friends there in school, they were all working. It was kind of the mindset at that point in time, certainly in Texas, that that you needed to go to work because you needed to provide. And you know, if you wanted things, they weren't given to you. You had to earn them. I remember the first bicycle I ever bought came as a result of that job. I put it on layaway at Western Auto. It was a red Flyer. And I took every dime I could get. Dad gave me an allowance for doing stuff around the house as well. And I took every penny, and we lived next door to the savings and loan. I put it all in there and then made my payments on my bicycle until I could get it. It wasn't an entitlement thing at all. It was a matter of putting forth effort and achieving the goals that you set for yourself. And that red bicycle was a big goal for me. And I learned that if you're going to achieve your goals, there's some sacrifice involved in getting there, and but that the results are very rewarding because you feel like you put forth the effort to achieve it.
So if you had to put your childhood into just a description, what would you describe your childhood as being like regarding the fact that you were able to get a job, you were able to save? What would you say your childhood was like overall?
Well, probably the biggest issue is, especially initially, was that I was overweight by the time I was about 7. And I got bullied a lot. And so my self-image wasn't all that great. And I had some great friends in elementary school. As a matter of fact, they're still friends today. So we've established contact and stayed in touch. And those friends kind of helped me get through it. But it was a tough time because a lot of the older kids would make fun of me. And so my self-worth wasn't there until I went to work and people told me how industrious I was and how much they appreciated the efforts that I put forth. And I found some value in that began to help change my life. And then at age 13, we moved to Fort Worth, Texas. And I entered junior high school. And I began to play basketball. And playing basketball brought a lot of changes in my life. First of all, I lost the weight. And then I began to make friends and begin to feel a lot better about who I was. So that was an instrumental thing that took place as a result of that move. But it wasn't easy making a move from a town of 2,000 people to a town of several hundred thousand.
I'll bet it wasn't. And so that self-confidence was real helpful to you. And you went on to college from there. And did you play ball in college?
I played basketball my first 2 years in Pascal High School. And my senior year, I didn't play. It got too competitive and my hands were too small and I wasn't the player that I wanted to be. But I kept playing when I got to college. But it was intramural. It wasn't the college programs. But I learned a lot from that. And the fraternity I was in, I played football and soccer and a lot of basketball all 6 years that I was there because I got a graduate degree as well. So the whole time I was there, I was playing. When I got out of college, I kept playing, and it was something that taught me a lot about teamwork.
Sure. And while you were in college, did you have any leadership roles in college, and was that helpful to you?
Oh yeah, my leadership roles were all the way from I was a member of Omicron Delta Epsilon, which was a economics fraternity, and I had I think I was treasurer, which kind of foretold of things to come. And then I served in numerous capacities, including president of the fraternity that I was in.
Well, would you say that athleticism that you experienced and being able to play and whatever, did that give you a lifelong passion for sports? Are you into sports? And
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I always was. I mean, even as a boy, before I began playing basketball, there was something that drew me to athletic events, and a lot of my friends got involved in music as well. But that's not what attracted me. It was the sports and the activity of sports, particularly because I was enjoying it with my best friends, and you know we did that together. It was a very good time in my life, really.
so it sounds like you've got a favorite team and a favorite player on that team, probably.
Yeah, that's varied through the years, but right now it'd have to be the Kansas City Chiefs and Mahomes. I just like the way he is unconventional. He's creative. He finds ways to do things that people thought there weren't any new ways to do it, and I really like that about him. But I got to say, if you ask that question a little different, if you said, "Who do you respect?" it would be Tom Brady. And you know, the thing about it is, the quarterback is the leader of the team. I mean, he's the guy that it all starts with, and so that position is extremely important because it has a leadership role. And Tom Brady was the guy that didn't get drafted in the first or second round. I think it was the fifth round. He wasn't expected to be great. He wasn't expected to be a franchise quarterback, and he played for one of the toughest coaches in the league, which tells you something about coaching. But the end result was he's certainly the GOAT, the greatest of all time, to a lot of people, and he's still out there playing at 43. So I have a great deal of respect for him.
And when you think about leaders, they just keep on keeping on. And I find it interesting that one of the things you said was that leaders find ways to get things done. So when we look back at what we said about you being an entrepreneurial banker, that just does seem strange because you're either a banker or you're an entrepreneur. So tell us how that role actually developed in you.
You know, for most of my early career, I wanted the security of a job, and I couldn't see myself as a risk taker. And so as a result of that, there weren't any entrepreneurial activities. I was very conservative in my investments and everything that I did. And then a guy by the name of Tom Brewster came along, and he truly was an entrepreneur. And he determined to make me into one. And he did that in a variety of ways to change my mindset about we're all risk takers. And I began to see people who had jobs who lost them and realized that there's no security, quote, in a job any more than there is in taking risk in a business. But when you take that risk and you're in a position of leadership, it's kind of up to you. That's a lot different than investing in the stock market and depending upon what others do. Now it's on you and what you can accomplish and what you can do. And so he showed me how to do that by, we took over problem banks that were failing. And at some point in time when we got them turned around, we actually invested in them. And Tom began to give me options for performance, like a bonus, but in stock. And I began to see the value of creating something that had value from something that didn't have any value. And that became a huge motivator in my life. It wasn't so much about the money that we made as it was a way of keeping score of how we were doing. And the better we did, the better we felt about ourselves. I've compared it a lot of times to the Super Bowl. If you're satisfied to have maybe 9-5 record, that's good, but it's not the championship. And so our attitude was, we're going to put forth whatever effort it takes, and we did. The risk in doing that is you wind up with an unbalanced life, which I don't advocate at all. In my life, it's God first, family second, and then my work. And so I spent a lot of hours in the office working toward those objectives and trying to achieve the goals that we set. But at the same point in time, I tried not to put God or my family in the background and to keep them out there in front, because actually the support of my wife and my family and the support of God and his direction really helped me achieve what my goals and objectives were. And once I realized that that was at play, life became a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember how you and I met?
Yeah, I sure do. I was when you're turning a bank around, you got a lot of problem loans, and we were working with a law firm there in St. Louis at the time, and they were giving us, counsel and helping us with documentation. And the attorney and I became real good friends, and he invited me to a seminar, and you were speaking there, and I liked what you had to say. It gave me some direction, and everybody else seemed to like it too, and there was humor in it, and I like humor. So when we got through, I went up and introduced myself and said I'd like to visit with you sometime, and that started a long relationship.
It sure did. And I remember very specifically there was maybe 40 people there, I guess. And we were introducing ourselves to each other, and you said something very significantly to me. And when we had that opportunity to talk together, one of the first things I wanted to do was get our wives together, because it seemed like we had a lot in common just from the fact that you, as you said, put God first, your business, your family second, and your business third. And that's such a beautiful way to establish what you need to be doing. So you remember the comment you made about foster children to me.
Yeah, through our life, we've started a lot of things. And my wife became a builder and a remodeler of homes. Uh, we've always had a project that we worked on together. I worked on that with her. But the big one that we undertook was uh, raising foster kids. And I think at the time, I told you that we had raised 60 delinquent foster kids in our home. And you were kind of like, really?
Yes, it was it was an aha for me thinking, I can't believe this very successful businessman, a banker who has to be very, very disciplined, also has this entrepreneurial spirit. And then he and his wife have time to reach in and touch 60 young people's lives at the same time. It was an amazing experience for me.
You know, it's something I think you have to be called to do it. I mean, it's not easy. There are a lot of challenges. I've said this many times, and it requires a lot of definition, but it's the truth. I learned more from those kids than I learned from my peers about how to run a company and how to manage a company, because you learn about people and you learn about how different people are and how they're all created unique and how they respond in different ways to different things. And when I began to apply that to them and had success in doing that, I began to apply it in my business life. And I began to understand that different people are motivated by different things. I go back to Vince Lombardi and people like that were just yellers and screamers, and I never saw that as being a way to achieve anything, and I found out it is. It does work for some people. And the other thing is to be an exhorter and an encourager, and it kind of depends on the personality of the person and where they are in their life as to how you can get them to reach beyond themselves, because I think that's one of the real keys to success. People tend to limit what they think they're capable of doing. And unless they have somebody working with them to get them to that next level, they find the security in just the status quo. And so you never really achieve what it is that you're intended to achieve in this life. And so when you get pushed beyond that, whichever way it is, I found my foster kids responding to different ways. Some were encouraged, some you just had to get in their face. But the result was that they achieved more than they thought they could. And of course, being delinquent foster kids, one of the things we discovered is that they all tended to be leaders. They just didn't have the chance to lead in a good way, and so they led in a bad way. And they had a lot of followers out there. But if you got them turned around to where they understood how to lead in a positive way, they went home very successful.
And you know, it brings us to the idea that all of us are responsible for all of our choices. And we have to take the consequences of those choices, and consequences are simply consequences, some positive, some negative. So things haven't always been easy for you. And so when the times get tough, what would you say to the leaders out there today that we're going through a time right now that is challenging in a lot of ways? What counsel or advice would you give them if you were coaching them?
I would just say that look at Abe Lincoln. Lincoln was a guy that lost nearly every election that he got into until he was elected president. But the main thing was when he fell down, he didn't stay down. He got up and he went on to the next thing. And I think the most important thing in life, I actually look forward to those times when there's struggles because that's the time you grow. I've used the analogy of being in a gym. You know, you go to a gym to improve your physical body, and when you do that and you're lifting weights and you're doing all the things you need to do to accomplish that goal, it's not without pain. As a matter of fact, it can bring a lot of pain if you're really pushing yourself. And the fact of the matter is, it's pushing through that pain that enables you to get a body in shape. And I think it's the same thing with your mind and the same thing with your spirit, because we're told we're body, soul, and spirit. And so you have to push yourself when you're in those times to persevere and to get through them. And in that process, you learn a lot. And yes, it can be painful, but it takes you to a different level. And if you take advantage of the opportunity to learn from that, it serves you well as you move through the rest of your career. So yeah, there were a lot of negative times. I mean, I lost my job as a reduction in force for a large bank at one point in time, but I would have never met Tom Brewster, and I would have never probably become an entrepreneur if it hadn't been for the fact that I went through that tough time. And at the time, we basically lost everything, and that for a banker is a really hard thing, especially when you've got 6 kids in your home, and you and your wife, and you're supposed to be the provider, and you can't even find a job. The economy was down, and our bank reduced the presidents of their subsidiary banks and put branch managers in, and I just wasn't needed at that time in my career. And it was a very, very difficult time to get through. But God brought us through it, and it created opportunities that I would have never seen. I don't think you can really look at the moment. I think you have to have the faith to believe that it's a positive event and work yourself through it.
So, in a few words, what are the components that leaders need to focus on?
Well, certainly on if you can't lead if you don't have any people.
Good point.
So the real key to leadership is well, there are several, but certainly one of them is to realize that all the people that work with you are probably not in the positions that they really ought to be in. I know when we take over a problem bank and we bring in our tools and so forth to do it, a lot of people didn't like it. And what I found out from them was that they never had liked being a banker. It was just a way to make money. I don't think that's a very good way to really build a career, is to do it just because you can make money. Now, we all have to make a certain amount to live and have a lifestyle and that kind of thing, but we're all created to do something. And I found that banking was that for me. And that's not where I started off. I started off in pre-med and quickly found out that wasn't going to work when I made a D in qualitative. And went into an economics class and made the highest grade in the class, went into statistics and made the highest grade in the class. And all of a sudden I'm going, I like this. And my uncles were bankers. And so for me, for the person to enjoy what they're doing, to feel like it's something they want to put the time and the effort and the attitude into, to help them mold that attitude, to be open to coaching. When you've got those kind of people, I'll just tell you, we took over and sold 4 different banks. And in the process of doing that, the first bank that we had, we built a team. And I'll go back to the football analogy, but we built a team. And that team, when we went into the second bank, after we'd sold the first one, those people had all gone to other jobs. But when we got the second opportunity, we called them up, and everybody we called wanted to come back. And I think it's because they enjoyed the atmosphere, they enjoyed what they were doing. We knew them, they knew us, and it became something where a quarterback will tell you if it's Brady and Gronkowski, he knows where Gronkowski's going to be before Gronkowski ever makes the break. When you build a team like that you can work with, you know what they're going to do. And that makes a huge difference in accomplishing your goals and objectives. The other thing about leadership that's important to me is I don't want to follow somebody that doesn't know where they're going. It helps to, I use the analogy of a wagon train. You've got a scout and he says, I'm going to take you to the West Coast. But I've never been there before. I don't want to get in that wagon train. When you got a guy that's been there 20 times and he's delivered successfully, that's the guy I want to go with. And so when I look for leaders, I look for somebody who has built the knowledge necessary to take you to where you want to go. whether that's the bank and the goals and the plans that we set, or whether it's individual goals that the people have set. That all is extremely important to help people get there. And when they know you care about them and that you know where you're going, it's a lot easier to follow. And you don't even have to be, the CEO or the vice chairman of the board or president of the bank. You can lead just because people look to you and see that you have a certain amount of self-awareness of knowing what it is you want to achieve in your life. People gravitate to that. And when they do, you take on a leadership role because they're listening to you. And it's important that you say the right things because you don't want to lead somebody down a rabbit hole. There you
go. Boy, that's beautiful. I think of a little piece of advice you gave me, and that was that all the ideas that you pop up with, you need to make absolutely certain that you're going to put them in some kind of an order and then not try to do everything, but try to do some very specific things. How do you structure that? I find that fascinating. It's been very helpful to me.
Well, the first thing is we always set a plan of what we wanted to achieve for a year. And my business partner was a very organized, very systematic person who, a place for everything and everything in its place kind of a guy. On the other hand, I might have a lot of stacks of paper on my desk, on the floor. I'd go home at night, they'd still be there. I wasn't organized that way because one of my giftings was creative. And creative people tend to come up with a lot of ideas. And if they get to pursuing all of them, they never achieve any of them. And so what he taught me was we're going to have a top 10 and a top 5. And I want you to do those top 5 things that are on your list because it'll help this bank achieve what we've set out to do. And so pursue those top 5. When you get those done, you can move to the next 5. And, every year when we got to the end of the year, what I found out over a period of about 25 years is we accomplished everything we set out to accomplish because we were focused. Our mind was in the same place. Everybody knew what we were trying to do. Everybody made their contribution because they had their top 5 to get done. And we all worked. When we got to the end of the year, there was a great sense of pride and self-value because we were able to establish those things and get them done. Before I'd get to the end of the year and I'd still have 25 things out on my plate. And, I'd have to go another year and then another year. And eventually some of them would get done. But that organizational structure was absolutely critical because it points you to getting done the things that are really important. And so that goes back to your reference.
That is absolutely golden. And someone like yourself is certainly got another project going. So what would you say is that next project, if you care to share any of it at all?
Oh, yeah. I've got a top 5, actually. I am sewing into my grandkids. And that's not an easy job. In today's society where there's so much entitlement out there, to convince them that they don't have to have a phone all the time or an iPad or something, and that they need to pursue their creative gifts because several of them have those, most of them have those. And they need to pursue that. They need to understand that things don't come easy, you work for them. And the scriptures tell us that a man that doesn't work doesn't eat. The truth is there's some people out there that can't work and they need our support, and I'm 100% behind it. But just to give up and say, I'll just let everybody else take care of it, I think is very dangerous. So sewing into my grandkids some of those principles and making sure that they understand how that works is a critical thing. And I have the time now to do more of that. They're in an age where it's important. And so that's one thing I'm sewing into. Another thing is that yourself and others have encouraged me to write. And I've got 3 books right now. Probably need to focus on one more than trying to do all of them. But I've been accumulating research materials for those, and I've started one of them. I think I'm trying to help pastors. Pastors have been my friends my entire life and were my families before that. And there's some needs out there that they need help with. Some of them are foreign missionaries, and I work on that as well. Being able to contribute to those things taught me something, that the financial resources that I was able to accumulate, I certainly don't need a lifestyle that's dependent upon all those financial resources. So God's blessed me in such a way that I've got the resources to be able to make a difference in some areas and help support people in achieving their goals. And so I'm working diligently to make sure that that gets done. And I had planned some trips, some mission trips and other trips. And of course, COVID has changed that. So I haven't been able to do that lately. But those are some of the goals that I have.
Well, we're going to make available the opportunity for folks to get in touch with you, with your permission. And if there's something that you want to say about that, great. And if not, we'll put it on the back of this so that they get a chance to get in touch with you if they'd like to expand what we've talked about today.
Well, certainly not everybody's going to agree with everything I say. I don't think any of us agree with everything everybody says. But when you've been through a life of, in my case, 57 years in the banking industry, I've seen some things that I've learned from. And if you can bring yourself to listen to the people who have been through those times, I was blessed to have about 5 very important mentors in my life. And they coached me and helped me avoid some of the pitfalls of life. And I'm forever indebted to them for doing that. So whether it's yourself or Tom Brewster or me, find somebody in your life that you feel like could sow into your life and give you some ideas to at least contemplate and think about. And it could make a big difference, because otherwise you may have to go through life experiences to learn it. And that's like going out and trying to lift 300 pounds when you've been lifting 100 pounds. It's not easy, and you have to go through a lot to get there. So if you can do that, there's I won't call it wisdom, because that's where they say gray hair, and I don't have any hair, so I guess you don't get the wisdom, but maybe you get some life experiences that'd be worthwhile. Be glad to share with people along those lines.
Wonderful. Well, I appreciate you doing this for us today, and look forward to when we might be able to chat just like this. Gaines, thank you.
Thank you, Tony. It's always good to visit with you.
Nice to visit with you. We want to say thank you to those of you who've heard this today, and we hope you'll join us again when we do some more interviews, helping people recognize the value that they have that they can give to others through an interview like this. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Tony Ruesing again at Fuel for Faith and Freedom. Look forward to having you join us another time. Thank you.